I've got one that can see.
Thursday, February 13th, 2025. I'm Scott Hensler. Yesterday I had the pleasure of interviewing Big John. That's his TikTok handle. There'll be links in the comments below for his videos. We had an interesting conversation that included Nimrod, Semiramis, Ishtar, and Baal, and the history of all this coming alive with detailed findings by the U.S. military during the invasion of Iraq by George W. Bush. Keep an open mind and open up your Old Testament to hear and comprehend what has been hidden from the general public and the possibilities that it holds for us today. Enjoy. All right, thank you for joining us, John, and the fact that we're going to be going over some topics that a lot of people have some trouble with or don't understand or don't quite comprehend the relation to today's occult and the doctrines that are being taught in the church, that some of them follow along with this. And so thank you for coming on. Thank you for bringing this up. Now, John, you were a former atheist. You were formerly in the military and a contractor. Do you want to go from here and just tell us about yourself?
Yep. Grew up, was introduced into the Catholic Church from, where I grew up at. It's a pretty popular religion. I was more or less forced to go Wednesdays and Sundays. Even at a young age, I recognized that, what the priest would say kind of didn't make sense. I did realize that either the pictures or the statue of Jesus on the cross looked like a white guy, and I always thought, I said, well, you tell me in these Sunday school that he's from Israel or the Middle East, but that guy looks white. So I figured that something was going on, but it just wasn't totally factual. So anyhow, grew up like that, and of course, a confirmed Catholic, did First Communion and baptism and all that stuff. And when I joined the military out of high school, I didn't have, I just kind of read the motions with it. I listened to 2 readings from Paul to whoever, then a reading from the gospel, and then listened about the hamburger sales and the collection basket and whatever, the gossiping, whatever kind of comes with the church. And so fast forward to the military, I just saw a lot of things in my experiences of just walking around and stuff and just being a human, I guess, that something else was going on, but I just couldn't fully believe that a guy came down from heaven and they beat him up and hung him on a cross, and then he died for my sins. I just never could believe that, so that I just totally put that as a fairy tale and continued on trying to survive in America.
So what led you into the military out of high school?
Really just to get away. I had a decent childhood, read a lot of books, punished a lot, so the only thing I could do was go to the library. I read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I've read On War by von Clausewitz. I even read War and Peace, even though that really wasn't a war book. But I read a lot of literature, Shakespearean things. I read Thesaurus, read the 1970 through 73 Encyclopedia Britannica. That seemed to be what my grandmother had in the book closet. So I had a lot of useless information, or a lot of, war theory. And so kind of growing up, I could actually see different things, like if I heard my parents talking, or maybe watching TV, I could relate what Karl von Clausewitz would say, and even Genghis Khan in his writings, to I call it unrestricted warfare, but a lot of it plays out, which I found out years later that it's biblical. A lot of things von Clausewitz talked about was I can kind of find in the epistles of Paul. And of course, with Genghis Khan, you can put his theories into everyday life. But they both basically talked about how every walk of life brings something different to unrestricted warfare. The peasant brings something, the farmer brings something, the scholar brings something, and it's people may pass it off to be, well, that's not that dangerous, but it really could be dangerous because a lot of times when I was in the Army, I would read in different manuals that someone who knows how to play a lot of instruments could be someone who you would want to take in so they can't start an insurgency. People that actually attend the gym have a lot of confidence and endurance, and they could be a problem too. So people really don't think about that, but when you really dig deep, people have influence, and then a lot of times militaries will have studies see who could start an army fast, and that because you'll be engaging those people in that typical urban scenario. So anyhow, did a lot of that, reading. So, and of course, I did do a lot of chores too. So, by the time I was, I knew that I wasn't going to attend the college. Kind of thought about a trade school, but I ended up going to the recruiter. He didn't come to me, and kind of asked, what the military could offer, and so just signed up that way.
Now, was that before Desert Storm and Desert Shield?
Yes. This was actually in the late '90s. So it was actually '99, before the terrorist attacks.
Okay.
And before Iraqi freedom.
And this was the Army, Marines?
Yes,
okay.
Army. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, Army. Back when there was no berets and it was still BI.
So this venture into the military, is this an eye opener for you? Are you seeing the way that the world really works? What went through your mind when you went into the military?
When I joined, it seemed to be pretty normal, and I knew I was going to encounter the drill sergeant and the basic combat training and different stuff like that, and they give you like a rundown that you'll attend this and then go to AIT. Well, my MOS, I was at OSA. I don't know if they still call it that, but it's one state community training. So I stayed with basic and AIT is kind of combined. You stay there for the entire time. So did that, and you just kind of meet your battle buddies and who you're going to hang out with, and of course your training and qualifying with your basic weapons, and then of course you graduate, and that was pretty normal. It's when I got to my unit is when kind of I don't know if I can say it's weird, but it's a lot more things I just never really thought I'd encounter with people, that weren't military. They were just kind of, I would say civilian. My later mind would tell me that, yeah, those people were, probably CIA or any kind of alphabet agency or even maybe unknown. That they would come around the barracks and kind of find out if you have families, if, in other words, people care about you. And then usually guys that I knew that particularly never talked about a family, or they weren't really like loners, but pretty much they were just kind of by themselves in the military, and they would attend different briefings, which at the time I knew took part at a chapel just around an airfield on Wednesdays. Some people listening may have heard of that or know what that is, but anyhow, they would just usually show up to that. They go to a briefing over there on Wednesdays, and then not long after that, you probably wouldn't notice them in the barracks anymore. Where they went is anybody's guess, but it's like there's lots of like hidden things that goes on like that.
Did you have any specialties that you focused on or wanted to get into, whether it was sniper or any type of black ops types of combat? Was that something of an interest to you?
Well, no, already wasn't a combat MOS, but to me it wasn't. You could have gone over. I didn't go to an airborne unit, so they kind of knocked out going to like Bragg or anywhere with the airborne unit. But they did have a Ranger bat where I was at. I don't even know if it's still there, but I didn't go with any kind of marksmanship. Was a designated marksman. It wasn't a sniper school. It was just maybe the range with your M24. But I really focused on just, and here's the thing: you can be on base, and most of your time is at the range or in the orderly room or on detail, basically. And, police calls, volunteer for different details, which is probably at the range anyways, different weapons, this and that. And then, of course, some time and I lived in the old barracks, kind of some of the first barracks that were on the post. And I would just volunteer for different ranges. So when the Javelin came out, I was actually part of that range. The Javelin anti-tank missile at the time, it was brand new, not known of, and we were the first ones to test it.
Mm-hmm. So when Bush started to come against Iraq, did you know you were going to go? Were you aware of this ahead of time to be prepared? How did that work out?
Well, of course, I had already been in almost 3 years before the terrorist attacks, and to me it was normal before that. There just wasn't a whole lot of talk. Now, there's different factions of people that join the military for college money and really never think that, well, there's a chance that you'll be called up to, engage an enemy. And in training, it's like everybody's gung-ho and this and that. But when you get to your unit, you got time. You party in the barracks, party off base, whatever you do, you just go do it. I don't think a lot of people really thought about that. I really didn't think about it. The terrorist attacks come around. It was a Tuesday morning. I was on base. I was actually woken up. Let's see, it had been 3 hours behind New York, so I was going to go to formation, and I got a phone call, which was a landline because none of us had cell phones, but in my room, and that a plane had struck a building, and I didn't really think anything of it, and I actually turned the TV on, and I watched the second plane hit the live on television.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of freaked out. I said, it's weird. But I go down to formation, and we're all kind of just, lollygagging before, come to attention. And I said, man, a couple of jet airliners hit the World Trade Center, and it just seems that nobody cared. So it seems like nobody, cared about that. And so it was sports PT on Tuesday, so we played flag football. And we play flag football, and nobody's saying anything. We don't hear nobody hollering. There's tons of people out there. Everybody's in their own little thing, calisthenics or muscle failure or whatever they're doing for PT. And nobody's talking about this. And it's on my mind, so I just finished. So we walk back towards the chow hall to get breakfast, and one of our friends comes off the balcony of the barracks and says, they just hit the Pentagon. So at that time, by then, we hear sirens go off on post, and, our, not even like maybe platoon leader, I don't remember if it was a sergeant or platoon leader, which would be an officer, but not a platoon sergeant. He was hollering battle rattle, and basically we were still in our PTs, which is T-shirt and shorts, and we go to the armory and, get our weapon, and they have, your combat load, which is 7 magazines. And I put on my LBV, which at the time was old style. They haven't gave us, Molly came out around that time. And anyhow, so I put the old style load-bearing vest on and put my magazines in it. And we were asked to change into our BDUs, and they were like, no, they had a 5-ton truck waiting on us. So we go to the front gate, and there are 2 Abrams tanks rolling with us down the main strip, on post, and the interstate runs through that post, and they shut it down. Nobody's coming in there. So anyhow, it's just kind of a big thing. That was 9/11 for me. And then of course Afghanistan kicked off after that. But no, thinking about Iraq, that was a totally kind of an unheard of thing at the time.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't really think about it.
Right, but you ended up over there. Now, we were talking, were you in Afghanistan first before you went to Iraq, or how did that go?
No. I showed up in Kuwait the end of '02.
Okay. And then you had a volunteer assignment. They were looking
Yes.
for volunteers to go into Baghdad, or how did that go?
The volunteer was to, from what I was told, we were offered. They tossed a coin to a group of us, and they told us the coin was from Ur. Now I didn't know anything about nothing. Everything. If people watch my TikToks or whatever, they hear me about 'em. At the time, I didn't know what Ur was. I didn't know about Paul. I didn't know any of these things biblically. Didn't know any areas. Didn't know about Ishtar. None of that stuff. So we were offered a coin, and the coin was from Ur, and later on that's Samaria, where Abraham was from.
Mm-hmm.
And on the coin there were 3 towers with some crescent moon, like in a bowl position with a ball in it. Now I never knew. I've heard different things, but I never really found what that was. But that was on the coin, and we were told it was name your price for that coin, and it was kind of like maybe to get you, I don't know, like excited about volunteering. But I was kind of, I don't care about the coin anyhow. They did say that we would be taking and I can't even say the word now, antiques, out of a museum.
Okay.
And it was weird to me because I'm thinking, well, Saddam Hussein at that time had already talked about, he surrounded Baghdad with the chemical weapons shield and all that stuff, and I was just thinking like, well, it's, why isn't maybe like a tier 1 or like a, Delta or whoever taking this? I never asked that out loud, but I thought, why wouldn't you use special forces to do this if these about these antiques? It was kind of like you don't think about it. You think about, well, let's go take out this weapons cache or something military wise, not go take out something out of a museum.
Right. And this was the Baghdad Museum, or?
This is a Babylonian museum in Baghdad, yes.
Okay. Then you had a certain amount of guys that stepped forward and were assigned to this. What did you do then?
Yes, there's about, if I remember correctly, there's about 20 of us. We got what they call Highway Tampa, was the road to Baghdad, and we got there way before the NDA states. I don't talk about dates, but this is way before March, when the actual kinetic war started. But so we go in unabated. There's nothing going on. It's we the curator was there, the ambassador to Iraq was there, and I will mention that guy was not American. I found out that he was actually Ukrainian, but no, he was not. There was no ambassador to Iraq at the time, but they used a Ukrainian guy, and he can be found. His name can be found on whatever Wikipedia, but that was him, and he was the direct, I called him, more like the head guy of this operation.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had a Navajo man named Robert Three Eagles. I don't know. He seemed to be older than me. I don't know exactly his age. I don't know if he's still around today, but I know that's just I told that's what his name was. He was our priority to take care of.
Okay. Now, of course, the Navajo talker was World War II. What was he there for?
From what I've gathered, way after this event, I think he could sing Hebrew letters, and he can kind of open up stuff. I don't know, from what I understand, it's called a golem.
Okay.
And if you sing Hebrew letters, like, things open at some of these sites. So, anybody can go out there and research this.
Yeah. Would you consider him like a shaman? Or some type of spiritualist?
I don't know. I don't think he did. I don't believe he. I don't know. I just know he knew a lot.
Okay.
He knew what was there, apparently.
Huh. All right.
He knew what was there, so that's why they brought him along. Like I said, I had got a hold of different people years later, and they told me that he had been seen on different things, like in Egypt, and I just know that the guy could sing Hebrew letters, and
Okay.
things happen when you sing Hebrew letters.
Huh. Very interesting. All right.
And let me think. So yeah, okay. So high priority, and then the requisite ambassador. I was on level 1. I don't know exactly how many levels there were, but I was only allowed to go into the level 1, and then I didn't have clearance for the other levels.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it works.
So your assignment was to actually go into this particular museum and take out the artifacts, secure them.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
And so these things were possibly so spiritual, or had some, whether you had to take them apart or whatever it is, this Navajo seemed to be the one, because of Hebrew, to do it.
Yeah. They said he could open up stuff with singing Hebrew stuff, Hebrew letters. That's all I can.
Okay.
That's
So
all I was
then,
ever told about him.
so you pretty much then was just following this guy and taking orders. And at this point, you still haven't really gone into any chambers or into anything special. What was the first thing that they had you do?
First thing we secured, like I said, in the entrance, and then the actual floors of the museum, which is just a regular place. It's nothing, it's like people can go there. It was business as usual. There was no it's about 2 in the. There's nothing, going on. You have people walking outside. You have stray dogs running around. It's kind of like, really nobody noticed us, or nobody cared. I didn't feel like I was going to be attacked, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the curator. There was actually 2 of them. I don't know if the other one was a curator. It was 2 females. One that was, she looked, of course they had their hijabs on, but I don't. One of them, this is my opinion. Of course, I remembered her. I thought that was weird because she was a Caucasian woman. And later on, when I had seen a picture of Maria Orsic, I instantly thought about that lady, and I said, "Was that a Maria Orsic?" That could be another story for another time. But
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that it was odd to see that particular woman there.
Yeah.
So yeah, then they had the curator. They're speaking, and they went straight for whatever. They had the eye on the prize, which I was told it was. They said mummies, and so they bring up this long crate, and I'm only listening to what's being said, and I remember them saying the male is in pieces.
Okay.
And that was the first extraction that they wanted to get was the male in pieces. Few guys were carrying these metal tablets, maybe bronze, maybe copper, just that color. I don't know exactly what metal it was. Now they put one at the edge towards the door, and I looked at it. So I saw a tablet. It wasn't. Now here's the thing. I didn't know about cuneiform or stone, or kind of like I never studied that, never looked at it, nothing like that. I know of like hieroglyphics, but I didn't realize that different cultures had different things. So that they took a piece of stone and chisel or whatever. All I know is this was a metal tablet, what I perceived to be metal, but it had things on there that later on I would say, you didn't need a translator, to like somebody to help you translate it, because it had a planet. You could tell it had maybe like a skyscraper, and then like a fighter jet. This is what's on that tablet.
Okay, but these were ancient, though.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay. So let's back up here. You mentioned that there was one individual, I think the way that you were wording this, that was in several pieces that they took out.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a very large logistics operation. Did you have trucks and cabinets and different crates already for these, or how were these things already in crates?
Yeah. Well, yes. It was a long crate that was the first thing that was brought up. Whether it was brought up, you know, it was already on the floor when I walked in there,
Mm-hmm.
but it was closer to where, you know, the stairs kind of went down into, you know, the lower levels.
Okay.
But it was right there. They brought it up at some point.
Okay. And so what was the conversation that led you to know that there was one individual that was in several pieces? Did they?
That was talk between the ambassador and Robert.
Okay. Okay. And at this point, you had no clue as to the potential of who this individual was. What was
No, I
it?
didn't
Were
know.
they large crates? Like this was even though it was in pieces, that it would have been a big person, or?
Yeah, the crate was probably 12, 13, somewhere over 12 foot, and then maybe 3 foot wide. So long, like a regular shipping crate, had handles on the side.
Okay.
I don't know, like I said, I don't know exactly what was in it, but I just know that the outer crate was long. Maybe like a 4 foot by 12 foot. Nothing special. Something maybe somebody built it. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. So once you started pulling these out, was there other artifacts that went along with this? But how many pieces did they say altogether? 14.
14. Yeah. It was 14, but and then like I said later on, years and years, 20 years after this happened, that's when I figured, oh, no wonder it was at how many pieces. Like I didn't know who that guy was or nothing. So at the time it was 14 pieces. The males in pieces, 14, and then later on I learned why he was in those pieces or whatever.
Right, right. So what? How long did this take you to do all of this? Was this a day, a week?
Oh no, it was they got with okay, so they had that ready, and then those tablets. Now, I saw what was on the tablets. Now the tablets were forgotten about, and this is another point that I made years later was that if you look at that tablet that came from this museum, and anybody could walk up to it and say, oh, that's a skyscraper, or that's a planet with rings around,
Mm-hmm.
they walked by that like it was nothing. They didn't care about that. Now, this is the part that I saw, and 4 years ago on TikTok that I just through prayer and basically being told, hey, disclose this, and I did. Now, what they brought up, and it wasn't in a crate. It was like on a carryable platform, almost like I guess maybe a pallet. Just, not like a pallet you would see, with a engine on it or whatever, but like like a nicer military pallet, maybe something like the Air Force would have, like but it was an egg.
Okay. How large was this egg?
Very big. Like I said, just eyeing it, anybody with, I don't know, my logical mind would say, I would say at least 6 to 7 foot long.
Wow. Okay. And I just want to remind everyone listening, too, that we're coming to a point that these things do go along with the Old Testament when it had to do with the Babylonian times. That's why it's so important here. Now, with these 40 guys that volunteered, you being of the military or the Army, was there any other, let's say, security, police, people overseeing you to make sure that things were done right?
Yes, definitely civilian contractors, probably maybe CIA, who knows. And then they had a few Marines with the ambassador.
Okay, because Marines are usually the police force in these types of things.
Yes.
Okay. So
it wasn't. Let me think. It's just I'm trying to see how to word it. There was no kind of there was no standoffish. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, they're gonna get this and then kill us and whatever. You know what I mean? Either whether that never crossed my mind or it just didn't seem like any kind of conspiracy to me.
yeah, well, they're probably just banking on the fact of everyone being ignorant to the point they had no idea what they were dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. Because the only thing that I was asked was, do I believe in Jesus? We were all asked that. Now, nobody pursued that. Nobody asked, why would you ask me that? We were just like, no, I don't. When they asked me, I said, no, I don't believe in it.
Okay.
And that was it. but we were
Were,
all
were
asked.
were there others in the group though that did say yes?
No,
Okay,
everybody
so
said no.
so they were focusing on a group of people that were non-believers.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, from what I can gather, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, continue.
We didn't have to sign anything. That it just said about no dates, but anything with not saying the word of Jesus, nothing like that. I think they just maybe tested us to see if we would, maybe be intrigued and ask why we were asked that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But nobody did.
Any signed disclosures?
Just the NDA is just like I said, just the dates.
Okay. Just the dates. That's strange.
I can tell you who was there. That their whole thing was maybe who's going to believe you anyways, but something. It's about the dates that matters to them.
Okay. All right. So once this stuff was, that particular grouping of materials was secured, was there any other things that you went forward to as well that may be important?
No. Once that egg came out, that kind of turned the tide with their attention.
Okay. Now, so was the egg tied down and in a crate itself that was semi-open that you could see what it was, or was it just known that it was an egg?
The egg was on a pallet, no visible tie downs.
What color was it?
An off-white.
An off-white. Okay.
Almost like a, I don't know. It had like, they would put some light on it. What it was, they had these. Okay, so if you look like that Easter egg, where you separate Easter egg to put money in or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It had these like copper and quartz, diamond shape, like in the shape of a diamond, copper and quartz. I called them locks that went around the equator of this egg, kind of where you would split it.
Okay, so it could have been in two parts where it opened up.
Yes, it opened up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it look like it was damaged at all?
I'm sorry?
Did it look like it was damaged at all?
No, not at all. It was so, it almost looked like it was porcelain or something.
Okay.
Maybe in a plastic. Who knows? I didn't touch it, but
Yeah.
it just like looking at it, it was so smooth looking. I just figured maybe it's just porcelain,
Yeah. And
like a toilet bowl or something.
did it look like maybe you could, transparency where you could maybe see into a little bit that there was anything in it, or was just
No,
No.
not. Maybe if you got close, but
okay?
even it, I don't think you could. It looked like just like a toilet bowl material.
Right. So was it extremely heavy for its size? Was it?
Well, no, they maybe had 10 people picked it up.
Uh-huh.
Around roughly 5 on each side. So
Right.
it would no.
Okay.
Now the thing is, when I said the attention turned to that, this is me observing it. Like now this is. I will say this. I was a James Bond fan when I was younger, and one of the Bond films was about basically an egg, and there was like in the like they were trying to buy the egg in the movie, and the egg had like a microchip. So anyhow, that I like thought about that instantly when I saw this egg, and I was like, well, I've watched that movie. I believe it was Octopussy was the James Bond movie, but I watched that over and over, and I just thought, wow, I instantly thought like, wow, they have an egg too. Like, what's the deal? Like, why they got a big egg? So I'm thinking about that, and then once again, I hear them talk about that's their queen. That's we got her. They were excited about having her. So there was a female in there.
Yeah. Okay, and we're going to break this down a little bit later, too, with the sequence of Semiramis and Nimrod and so forth. Okay. So how old were you at this point, you think?
Yeah, pretty sure it was 20.
20? And it was maybe another 10, 20 years before you put this together, or?
Yeah, it was 2015.
Okay. And was this what led you into Christianity to finally believe in Christ, or how did that go?
Yes, yeah, it definitely played a part.
Okay, because that's a big deal, and we've heard other things, where people finding giants in Afghanistan and teams that were Christian they were the only ones that could withstand an encounter with these type of beings. But this is artifacts that have to do with Nimrod and Babylon and some of the others to be secured. Where do you think this stuff was taken to?
Don't know. The only, just in my research, I'm going to guess Wright-Patterson.
Okay. And you think this is probably what Bush, his whole plot was for this particular event, was to come in and secure these things?
Yes, yeah. They also got what I was told was a Stargate. Now, I didn't know. I didn't see it. I think the thing about Stargates is Stargates are dime a dozen, from what I found out.
Okay.
And each one does something different. The one that Nimrod particularly had could actually open up the gates to heaven. That's why his event was so serious.
Okay. And I think the Tower of Babylon was pretty much that. They're found all over the place, so I see where that. But this is significant find that those that worship the moon and the sun and the occult in itself gaining power with the knowledge of the tablets and being able to decipher them by using the specific words is a very, very big deal. Do you think maybe some of this might have had to do with CERN too?
Yeah, because like I said, the years later, I started. In other words, 2015 is when I converted. So anything after that, that's when I, had these dreams and conversed with the Lord and through prayer and this and that.
Okay.
And like I said, I want to say I'm nothing special. I'm just an average person. I just the Lord came and did something about me. Not because, like I said, we may get into it by my story, but he, when I converted, I started looking up all these different things, and kind of was shown where to go with the research. So, yes, I'm sorry, Scott. Ask me again.
Well, again, the events that are taking place today, that the sequence of things in order for them to finalize what they intend to do with all of us here, in these last days, that once they have this knowledge, like Nimrod himself potentially had the clothes of Adam and Eve. There's been talk about,
yes, right. Yeah.
So gaining the power, he became a mighty man. So there's abilities and powers and knowledge from just what you guys found, and also the recognition of finding 14 pieces going along with the biblical understanding of what took place, that this alone could start a whole new revolution, a whole new opening chapter for a new beginning. The occult, the New World Order, those of the Luciferian doctrines, these are golden nuggets for them to inspire them or to empower them to take everything to another level. And I think that's what's taking place. I think that's why things are so crazy.
Well, yeah, and that's what I kind of come to the conclusion that I've always, people who listen to me, like I said, I always harp about Ishtar, and I can just name so many facts that like in other words, every book experience always goes back to a female entity that people encounter. And so I was going to say about the 14 pieces, like I said, later on in the history, they only found 13, and that's why Ishtar made the phallus out of gold per se, and attached that to his body because they couldn't find the 14th piece. So
Right.
When they said 14, my opinion was that they actually got the phallus that she had in the recovery.
Okay. So bringing everyone up to speed, that with Semiramis being both mother and wife of Nimrod and the issues that took place in Genesis 10, that by cutting them up into these pieces, that the phallus was the reproductive organ that was never found, at least by her at the time. And then, there are other writings that kind of interject of what, Osiris, we're talking about the great-grandson of Noah. We're talking about moon goddess, Estar, Easter, all of this stuff here eventually leading up to Baal or Baal. Now, when we look at where the church is today, that when we see Easter or the resurrection of Easter, this has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. And it's very upsetting and very disheartening for a church to be led down an occultic path such as this, to overlap the resurrection of Jesus Christ with Easter. And so all the things that you've experienced in which you came to an understanding that led you to become a believer of Jesus Christ was that you saw the truth. You saw what you saw and realized that these things are part of the Old Testament. They have validity. They have the ability to bring to us faith to know that these things actually took place and that, yes, there was an occult practice that led us up to today. Is there anything you want to add to that? I mean, you've did a lot more research than I ever have. I deal with the demonic world and I deal with casting out demons, but with what you researched, you want to kind of go through some of this in order?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I will say, like I said, that the operation was that. Went the rest of my, got out of the military, ended up getting married, and my wife was a believer in Jesus. I still wasn't. Up until around 2015, I was going through a lot of different things. I guess every human does. Just of course I didn't have the Lord to humble me or comfort me or whatever these good things that He does, because I just didn't believe in Him. So there was no way to. I was separated from Him, so I couldn't have anything with that. So, but she was a believer, and I actually got it. I actually started reading these different writings, and I came into the conclusion that this Osiris, who I didn't really connect to the operation. I just reading about him and how much, like the winter solstice. And I was like, well, this must be the guy because they are marrying Jesus off him.
Mm-hmm.
And I came, to this conclusion in my own mind that Osiris was a real savior and Jesus was made up. So I got heavy into this Osiris belief. And my, wife at the time, being a believer, because we did end up getting divorced after this, but and I'll tell you, it sounds sad, but I will say, how I feel about it. When I came to her and I totally went off the deep end. I was just hooping and hollering, blaspheming Jesus, cursing like he's nothing, made up to make us behave. Osiris. Anyhow, she literally slaps my face, and she's like, who are you? Like, how dare you? And I never, thought that from her, but I know that I was getting pretty, probably, like psychotic, I guess, not towards her, but just like towards the world in general. I just kind of lose my mind, and she brings me back to reality, and she's like, how dare you say stuff like that? And she's like, I know you don't believe in him, but she goes, it's not even healthy to even like think like that about anybody. So she was real calm about it, Well, I have my experience with the Lord not long after, and he showed up, and and like I said, I don't know none of these things from the Bible. I found everything out after my conversion, but I didn't see him, but he told me, I'm like, who are you? And he said, it's I Jesus whom you persecute and that you hate. And I'm like, well, why are you here? Because I'm like, why'd you show up? You've never been for me before. And he told me that I had free will and that he cares about me, but he doesn't interfere. And he said, but when a believer puts you on the altar and cries out for you, I will do something about it. He said, when the innocent cries out for you, I will do something about it. And I found out maybe a couple years later. I actually asked her, and I said, "What did you tell him?" And she said, "I pray that either he kills you or does something about you, because I'm done." And yeah, so he showed up and took me through different things. And after I was basically put back in my body, I didn't know what to do. I ran off to the church that I was forced to go to most of my young life, and went there and talked to the priest. And of course, it wasn't the same one at the time, but I said, "What is this? I just had this experience." Person saying that Jesus, and I said, "I truly believe it was him, and he did this and showed me the abyss and these creatures down there, and those things didn't even compare to what he took away my hope." And I'm gonna tell you, that's very intimidating. I hope that never happens to people, but that's what the Lord. That's the thing that the Lord can do. No Lucifer, no fallen angels, no Nephilim, no whatever. That they can't do none of that stuff that he can do. So I asked this priest, what's going on, and this priest basically said I was just crazy and going through an episode of mental breakdown or whatever, and proceeds to tell the wife that the reason why we couldn't have any kids because she wasn't Catholic, and just all these crazy things. And at that very moment, the voice, the Lord comes back and tells me, "And you've called this man father your whole life." So he's like, now I'm like in this revelation, genre now that he's just telling me these things. And so I go into the, I don't know if you would say chapel, where they have mass at, and I didn't know what to do. And, I just something about the cross. I just went there and, told the Lord what I was, and I asked him into my heart. And he picked me up. Like, and I'm, 6'4". At the time I was like 400 something pounds. And she saw it. I was lifted with nobody around me. And he told me that he made me new again.
Mm-hmm.
And after that point, I don't care what anybody said. You weren't, you can't convince me to this day that he ain't real. You know what I mean? I don't care if a Nephilim shows up and and tells me the stories of the beginning. I'm gonna rebuke it. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. You can't pull me from the belief in Jesus Christ now. It can't happen.
Right. So I was going to ask, when you were around these artifacts, though, did you get any weird vibes? Did you have bad dreams or anything that was lasting?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing to say. I've always tried to I've never saw anybody about it. I never told anybody. I've explained a little bit on TikTok years ago on my old account, but I think like being around Ishtar and that egg, something was heightened. Like it was. I'll be honest. I just say it. Females with Rh negative blood. I don't know. I've had a lot of run-ins with them. Not particularly anything intimate or nasty, but Rh negative females have strike up conversations with me.
Okay. So there was a significant change after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that happen until that. After that, that's when that started.
Okay.
And this whole Rh negative thing.
But did you have any demonic instances? Was there more paranormal activity? Did you feel like?
I think on a level of really having a wrath and a hatred for Jesus.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Till that breaking point.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go into what you found about Nimrod, what you found about, the egg. Can you kind of put this together, how this comes together as we we see today?
Yes. Okay, so when Set, there's a story from what I understand. Set was Osiris's brother,
Yes.
and uh, they say that Ishtar was the sister of both and the wife of Osiris. And so Osiris left, came back, and when he did, he was killed by Set and chopped up into. Now, some stories from Diodorus, which was a Greek writer at the time, he claimed that the original pieces were 26 in his writings, and then most of your other writings were 14. And of course, I mean, that could have been, they cut them down even smaller. But anyhow, so the story that's most popular is the 14 pieces. And there's a picture of John Podesta, and I think he was like maybe the campaign manager of Hillary Clinton. There's a picture of him with his palms open, and they say it's real. He has the number 14 in one palm and a fish in the other. Well, the story goes that when Set threw the pieces into the Nile River, the fish ate his private part.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And now they only recovered 13. Ishtar can only find 13. Now, she put the 13 pieces together, and she designed a golden phallus or an obelisk, and she put that on the body and performed intercourse on him, but that's called the apotheosis ritual. And then she got pregnant with Horus. So the other, now that was like the first part of my research, and then and you can find it. I didn't particularly I didn't hear anybody really talk about it besides, and I'll get into this part, Tom Horn, but there really wasn't nothing else about it. And then if you look like Washington D.C. and the whole obelisk thing, with the apotheosis, the original obelisk and dome of a building was in Heliopolis, and Heliopolis, most people probably go crazy, whatever, but Heliopolis was a city that was assimilated to. It was already there, my opinion is it's pre-Adamite, but an obelisk facing the dome, with a river.
And we see that in Washington with the Washington Monument, the pond, and then the Capitol building.
Hill Dome. Yeah.
Yes.
And you see it also at the Vatican, which is the obelisk in St. Peter's Square is the original Heliopolis obelisk. It was moved, but it's in the fountain, and then it faces the basilica, the dome. And the dome represents Ishtar's belly, pregnant belly, and then, of course, the obelisk is the private part of Osiris. And also, too, the Sphinx is also a representation of Osiris and Ishtar. In other words, Leo, the lion, because the Sphinx is Ishtar's face and the lion's body. And the tail, the Leo star, the constellations behind it, and then the Virgo stars in front of it, and Virgo is also Ishtar. In Washington, D.C., the three stars of Virgo are lined up with the rotunda of the Capitol Hill building. So, Washington, D.C. is built off of Ishtar, basically.
Yes. Yeah, and also the pond, when standing at the Capitol, you see the reflection of it, so as above, so below.
Yes, yeah, and the reflection, the obelisk enters into the dome and the reflection. So it's all about the apotheosis, which basically is Ishtar having intercourse with dead Osiris.
Right. Okay.
And it pulled up his spirit from the underworld, and Osiris is also called Apollyon.
Okay.
And it pulled up the spirit. And the thing about Washington, D.C. is every inauguration, there is the Scottish Rite Herodom Dome building down the road from the White House. The Freemasons perform the inaugurate ritual where they try to pull up Apollyon to the president's body. And this particular time, Trump actually did the inauguration underneath the apotheosis of George Washington, which is painted in the belly of the Capitol Hill building.
Yeah, and note that he didn't put his hand on the Bible.
Yeah.
Right, so Osiris also referred to as the ruler of Egypt and also known as Isis. So there's many things that surround this whole thing that have to do with Freemasonry. And, Washington, D.C. itself is just based on it so heavily that, District of Columbia.
Yeah, that I know you know, and most people that research that the Egyptian esoteric and the Freemasonry is just hand in hand, and of
Yeah,
course,
and then we also
that.
have the Temple of Set too. So there's all
Yeah,
these
no doubt.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like all that has beginnings, and so yeah, that's apotheosis. That's probably one of the major things of it. The whole egg thing. Now, Ishtar was from Memphis, Egypt, and one of the things I talked about probably a couple of years ago on a different podcast was about when you go to Memphis, Tennessee. Welcome to Memphis. There is an egg when you enter the city, and that's when the egg really started like popping up everywhere. You had that egg. You had what they said eggs were like curing COVID, and they wouldn't let you buy eggs or something like that. Rihanna wore a fried egg dress with a yolk in it. It was just weird. And like 2 years before that, I had disclosed on TikTok that I told this basically this story that an egg was recovered with Ishtar inside it.
Yeah, and
And
Lady Gaga was seen.
that's right. Yeah, like another one. Yeah, she was an egg.
Uh huh.
And I just it's like weird. Like, why is it all that? You're like, what is the deal with the egg? And I just was like, here, I'm not special with everybody. I told that story, I disclosed that story to get it out there because I was prompted to. And then, like I said, this whole egg phenomenon took off, and now it's kind of back. Then whether it's real or not, the egg UAP recovered, or the egg in Antarctica with somebody in it with the hieroglyphics. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that's why I'm like, you know what? It proves nothing with me. It's like I'm just an average person. I just told you my experience, but it's something. The egg means something.
Yeah. We also see with Ishtar Easter or the Easter eggs. Let's see, what is it here? We have those things that have to do with love and fertility, also being of
Yes.
war. And so the rabbits are part of the fertility, and this is why we have the Easter eggs today. And this is why it's upsetting to see the church go along with such
Yeah.
blasphemy.
Yeah, the fertility, because there's a rabbit in the moon, and the moon is, you could say Semiramis, which is all Ishtar. It's all the same entity. Semiramis, Artemis, Hathor, Inanna. That's all Ishtar. It's all the one female entity.
Yeah, we've also referred to as the moon goddess, or
Yeah,
even
and there's a rabbit
yeah.
in the moon.
Okay, yeah, even the Queen of Heaven. But we also see that Mary, the Catholic religion, is also referred to that as well. So
It's I don't know why. I got a pretty good idea, but even in the stories of if you want to believe in the Anunnaki, their story about Ishtar is that they used in vitro with her to give birth to their their slave race or whatever they called it. Then they mixed their DNA with the slave race on Earth, or whatever the story goes. But they also talk about Ishtar, so she's in every culture.
yeah, it's like Lucifer. When we look at what particular century, he's under a different name, but it's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same with Osiris.
and when I see eternal flames or something that has to do with a sacred candle, some of the churches I see the flame on it. This is Baal who was ascended up to the sun, or became Baal from being ascended up. All of this, when it migrates into the church and the people don't understand it, just like we have phallic symbols on top of the church they call steeples, and everything that has just basically drawn us away from Christ, that this has got us where we are today. And I don't know where you are exactly with understanding Zionism, but it's another thing that I have great concerns about, because they too over there in fact, Freemasonry comes out of that area, and everything that we see in the religion or the ceremonies is in relation to that. And so where are you at right now with wanting or understanding what's next? What do you think is what's next?
Everything I think within the last few months um, from what I can recognize from my memory or something that reminds me, if I see an event and I'm like, oh yeah, and I got a pretty good memory, but I go back and think or just look at some of my notebooks from 2015 today. I notice that every story now involves this female entity, and I recently, I might have been yesterday, but Whitley Strieber wrote the book Communion, and I never realized this, but the on the cover, that's his version of Ishtar, because he says that he encountered Ishtar on the UFO when on his particular incident,
Mm-hmm.
and I just find it like it's always involved her now. It's she's always been there, but when I go back and look, it's like wow, like how is she involved in everything? Now, where we're at, in my opinion, is that I definitely think that the falling away that must happen before the son of perdition is revealed, and that has to be some kind of supernatural event. You can't turn away people's belief with just some guy talking, some politician or some preacher or whatever. You have to have like a pretty significant, crazy event to get people to say, "Oh, okay, well, no, they made Jesus up." So I notice now that a lot of this UAP talk, UFO, whatever, there's a new thing now, and it's particularly that well, I believe in Jesus, but I have contact with aliens,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm positive that they're going to assimilate Jesus into that they're going to use the whole "I'm not of this world" scenario, and they're gonna use their lying signs and wonders to show that he's just an interdimensional thing, and he's a good one.
yeah,
Nothing special, just well, he's a nice one. But they're going to assimilate Jesus into this whole alien interdimensional whatever scenario. So it's going to make him less popular, and I think that's, in my opinion, where the falling away is going to show up.
yeah. Well, when you give them false information, then there's doubt, and when you have doubt, you lose faith, and it sort of snowballs. And a lot of
Oh,
people,
easily.
yeah, they haven't been totally founded because of the teachings within these churches, and that's what concerns me. You talked about TikTok. Do you have a channel that you can point to that people can come and hear some of your stuff?
Yeah, it's my username is it's my backup. My other one was banned, but Big John 24982.
Okay.
I have some of my older videos on there, some newer stuff. My YouTube is Big John Great Adventure. Everything that usually gets banned on TikTok, I'll just put on YouTube and you can watch it there. But like I said, I'm not fancy with anything. I usually harp on the same subjects, but I just try to. I think my whole thing is with why I was part of that particular operation. That obviously God knows what's going to happen, but I think that the Lord, it did a lot of things. I conferred it. Like I said, He didn't force me. I had my own free will. I knew that He was right about me, and I asked Him into my heart, so He didn't force me or nothing. So that's how I know. That's all my belief in it. That it's so real that I said, Lord, I need you. You don't need you don't need me. So that's another thing. And I like it. It just everything that how it happened in my life. I know that it was timed and it was correct.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's crazy to think about it as just a human, how these things work. But also too, I wanted to say that I did end up getting a divorce, and like I said, I didn't know a whole lot of things, but Scripture and the Lord told me that the believing wife sanctifies the unbelieving husband,
Yeah.
and she left, and I asked the Lord. I for a second was like, I did all these things, did a 180, and so doing this preaching and telling people about the middle message of the cross, and how not to don't listen to humans. Just kind of, do you have a relationship? Because I would tell people, it doesn't matter your walk of life. do you have a relationship with Jesus? Like, do you talk to him? Well, no, I don't, because I said, well, that's the point. You've been listening to people too much.
Yeah.
You need to get a relationship. Go to your prayer closet, go to your vehicle, talk to him wherever, and don't tell people, don't tell your fellow man about it. And I said, that's the real message of the cross. And then they would go and say, hey, I got a relationship now. Okay, good. I don't go tell people, because you're going to get humans' opinion, and then kind of mess things up. But I said, I'm not knocking church or nothing. I'm just saying, like, make sure first that you have a relationship with him, and then you and him can figure out if you feel you have a problem, if you have a sin or whatever. So anyhow, I went with that, and that's how I truly feel like I was told. But in the end, I asked the Lord pretty much two things. Like, one, hey, I don't get it. Why did you come down here? Why do I live on a planet per se, or what's the point of all this? And he said, I've come to reverse what they did on Mount Hermon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing that I had to research into the fallen, because that's what's made he showed me all these things about what I was doing wrong in my life. But then when I asked him later on, hey, I hate to ask you again, I know that you're real, but so what's this purpose? And he said, well, these fallen angels, they left my father's their first estate, and they came and did all these things. And he's the one who told me, he said, the giants and these chimeras, and just, they taught y'all how to have these emotions, that, warfare and drug use and just all these things. And I mean, the light bulb went off in my head. I was like, wow, that's what happened. And then the second thing that I never forget what he said was, when I said, well, what if I did all these things and I've become new again, why is she gone? And he said, did she submit herself to you? And this is my opinion. I think that submission really is the word sanctification, because that's the purpose of a woman in Genesis. So that's what I read, that she closes the gap between man and the Almighty. I think that's a pretty more important thing than what a male has to do. But like I said, that's my opinion. But I said, well, yeah. And then he said, did you love her as I love the church? And no, I did not do that.
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, well, that's okay. So then I never asked, that was it. That was just, I think that was her purpose, was to pray for me, put me on the altar. I converted, and that was it.
And
So,
the important thing is that you were at a point to make a choice, and you made the right choice. And
definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, it was sometimes I say you can't beat them, join them, but he was right about. He's right. People get mad and you hear horrible things and I was there one time. I said horrible things about him, but he's right. You can't sit back and have him tell you stuff, because that he's right. you can't even question. That's how much he loves you.
Yeah. Would you ever return back to Baghdad? Would that be something that would ever interest you?
Return where?
Baghdad, to ever go back?
I don't even think I've heard different things. I would like to go see what's left of that stuff. I don't think it's even intact anymore. But I know that Mosul also had a lot of stuff which they claimed that ISIS tore apart in 2000, I think 6 or 7. They destroyed a bunch of stuff. That might have been an operation that they say that they got rid of it so nobody else can have it, and just say that they did it. But yeah, a lot of that, that in my opinion definitely was the whole cause of the war.
Yeah,
that was a purpose. It had nothing to do with
Yeah,
everything else was kind of like a cover.
Yeah.
I get, and they, you could tell in the people's eyes that they were happy that Saddam was overthrown. But in my opinion, I think the insurgency started when our government wanted more, because there was definitely a shift of them liking us, and then of course the insurgency starting. And I mean, honestly, if you read about warfare, even kind of common sense that if you are liberated, and then your liberators stay and kind of have the spoils of war and want more, you'll probably turn into an insurgency too.
Well, I think what we're seeing today in our own country
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
is just, with all the unveiling, we already knew everything was corrupt, but now we get a chance to really see just how bad
Yeah.
it is, and it's staggering.
I
So,
mean, you have such a, and I mean, we could do 1,000 shows because all the stuff we could talk about. But I mean, so if America, which is, we can say that America is built on Egyptian esoteric and Masonic, genres, that to have a country like this, I don't know if you could see a catch-22, or I call it a cover, because you can have the surface, right? We're on the. It's almost like the Book of Time Machine, where you have the Morlocks underneath the ground, and then you have like the regular, people on top, like they're doing really demonic things underneath the ground, while everybody's kind of doing their own little thing on top. So I've always compared that like to America. Like, we're all in this country that's, for the most part, pretty free. You get a few laws you just have to obey, but the laws are like, nobody wakes up and wants to go hurt people, so it's kind of like a common, sense law. You can go to Walmart or go fishing or whatever you think, right? And then, but underneath their feet, you have, whether the agenda's real or not, doing things to the kids and, devil worship, or whatever you can think of that's grotesque things. But it's always ran together. And my belief is right now, the surface has met the underworld. And that's why people are freaking out, because the surface has never seen, the occult. And the occult just means the hidden. It doesn't really mean anything else, just things that are hidden. And I think people are having their minds blown and don't know how to take it.
Yeah. Well, whatever is going to take place with potential reptilian sightings and manifestations, and we can talk about that another time. That regardless, as us as believers, fear not, because I think that's the other thing, is that they're putting so much out there that our heads are spinning, which is part of the psyop. And
of course, and that's why I say I think the falling away is going to be where they put enough stuff. The veil is so thin with CERN or rituals or stargates, wherever they're using, that they're going to be able to accomplish this event to where, Jesus is just another,
right,
alien per se.
Well, is there anything else as we close here that you want to say before we say goodbye?
I do want to say, now, I thank you for keeping me on topic the best you can, because I do ramble. I did want to go back real quick to the rabbit and the egg and the Easter thing.
Okay.
If people can remember the real story of the Cabbage Patch Kids, the story goes, if you bought one, and maybe been on the back of the box, it was a bunny chimera mixed with a bee that went around to the Cabbage Patch eggs, and babies were born from the Cabbage Patch egg. So it was a fertility chimera, a bee and a bunny, that hatched these babies out of the Cabbage Patch. That was the original story. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then also, too, now I was told this, maybe this is a story for next time, but real quick, if things can be either in plain sight or just a coincidental joke, the Cadbury bunny. I was told that in Mesopotamia, that rabbits at one time did lay eggs. It wasn't just a Cadbury commercial.
Well, I know that Mesopotamia, and then we have the mud flood, and we have different things that have been hidden and taken from us, and the way history's been changed. I think anything's possible.
Yeah, I was told that. I was told that by one person, and I never forgot that. But they told me, well, the Cadbury bunny on the commercial, that's just not a joke. That at one time the rabbit, the actual mascot of Ishtar, did lay eggs at one time.
Interesting. Okay, well, John, Big John, thank you. I think maybe if we can put something else together, I would love to have you back again. Does that work for you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So from this point, we'll just let it go. And again, the reality of the Old Testament coming alive. I wanted to point out that when I got into deliverance, the first time that I went to an actual, if you want to call it an exorcism, that I actually saw the Bible come alive with the particular demons that manifested in the people that were being delivered. And it was such a foundation for me to have more faith by the realization of what I was seeing before me taking place that confirmed those things of old. And everything that we talked about, or you talked about today, has been around a very, very long time. And it's been kept secret, or at least away from the normal public, and then now being revealed. And so I think that's another representation of our end times today. So I'm not sure what you think about that, but I think so. And
definitely. I mean, it's all connected. 100%.
It's all connected, and what a time to be alive. And though it is concern, I don't like using the word fearful. It's concerning. We need to be wise as serpents, but be steady and stable and gentle as doves, and just be ready. But the foundation of our spirit, our constitution of who we are, based in Jesus Christ, is the fundamental mechanism that will see us through this. So, all right, John, thank you, and we'll have you back, okay?
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. I know I did. God tells us what has been hidden will be revealed. The question is, what does all of this hold for us? Look around and see what you see. Corruption, perversion, lies, and hate. And especially hate for the one true God by those who are linked to the information just given. So be ready in your spirit, for it's all coming to a head. We are all in the middle of this, whether we like it or not. God bless, and see you next time.